The night was colder than usual, and the silence of the small town seemed unusually heavy, as if it carried secrets that no one dared to speak aloud. Among the dimly lit streets stood an old house at the very end of Willow Lane, where a young man named Adrian lived. Adrian was quiet, reserved, and though his neighbors saw him every day walking to work, they never truly knew him. His life was simple on the surface. He worked as a librarian, spent his evenings in solitude, and carried himself with a gentleness that many mistook for weakness. But what no one realized was that Adrian's life had been shaped by tragedy, and beneath his calm demeanor lay scars that had never healed. Years ago, Adrian had lost both his parents in a mysterious accident. The official story was that their car skidded off the road on a rainy night, but the details never quite added up. Adrian, then just a teenager, remembered overhearing hushed arguments between his father and an unknown caller just days before the accident. He had tried countless times to find the truth, but each attempt was met with silence, closed doors, and missing records. That unanswered question had followed him into adulthood, leaving him restless and burdened with suspicion. Adrian often dreamed of his parents, his mother's soft smile, his father's reassuring voice, and woke up with the ache of longing. He wanted closure, but he also feared what he might discover. So he buried himself in books, pretending knowledge could protect him from the shadows of his past. Yet fate, as it often does, had other plans. One evening, while closing the library, Adrian noticed a young woman standing outside in the rain. She was shivering, her eyes filled with fear, as if she had run away from something terrible. He hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward and asked if she needed help. Her name, she said softly, was Evelyn. She had no umbrella, no coat, and no explanation for why she was standing there at such an hour. Something in her trembling voice, however, compelled Adrian to take her in. As the days passed, Evelyn revealed fragments of her story. She had been living with an uncle who, beneath the surface of respectability, was cruel and controlling. He had kept her isolated, threatening her whenever she tried to reach out for help. When she finally gathered the courage to run away, she ended up lost in the rain with nowhere to go. Adrian offered her shelter, though he knew it would complicate his quiet life. There was something about Evelyn that struck a chord deep within him. Perhaps it was the loneliness in her eyes, a loneliness that mirrored his own. But as Evelyn grew comfortable, small details about her past began to unsettle Adrian. She spoke of overhearing late-night phone calls her uncle had with strangers, deals that sounded less like family business and more like criminal transactions. One night, while recounting a particularly disturbing memory, Evelyn mentioned a name that froze Adrian where he sat. It was the same name he had heard his father whispering on the phone all those years ago, just before the accident. Adrian's heart pounded. Could it be that Evelyn's cruel uncle was somehow connected to his parents' death? The thought was too much to ignore. He decided to investigate, though he knew it could be dangerous. Evelyn, seeing the fire in his eyes, tried to stop him, but Adrian was relentless. He had spent years living with unanswered questions. Now, for the first time, he had a thread to follow. What began as cautious inquiries soon spiraled into something larger. Adrian discovered that Evelyn's uncle was involved in illegal land deals, using threats and violence to seize properties. Buried within those deals was the name of his father, who had once refused to sell their family's land despite mounting pressure. Adrian realized, with a sickening twist in his stomach, that his parents had not died in an accident. They had been silenced. The revelation consumed him. He spent sleepless nights piecing together evidence, his mind racing between grief, anger, and fear. Evelyn stood by his side, offering comfort, though she too was terrified. They knew they were dealing with powerful men who would not hesitate to destroy anyone in their way. The tension grew heavier each day, the sense of being watched gnawing at their nerves. One stormy night, Adrian returned home to find his small living room in disarray. Papers were scattered, drawers pulled open, and a chilling note sat on the table. "Stop digging, or you'll end up like them." His hands shook as he read it, rage boiling inside him. For years, he had lived in silence, but now silence felt like a prison. He couldn't let fear dictate his life anymore. He owed it to his parents, and now, to Evelyn, to uncover the truth. With Evelyn's encouragement, Adrian took the evidence he had gathered to a trusted journalist, a woman named Clara who had once written about corruption in the town. Clara, skeptical at first, was soon drawn into the story when she saw the documents Adrian had collected. She warned him that exposing such men would be perilous, but Adrian no longer cared. Days turned into weeks as they prepared, gathering proof, cross-checking records, and tracing the web of lies. Every step forward brought fresh danger. Adrian noticed unfamiliar cars parked near his house. He received threatening phone calls late at night, voices whispering promises of ruin. Evelyn was nearly abducted one afternoon, saved only by a passerby who intervened. The suspense was suffocating, and yet, through it all, Adrian held on to the belief that justice could still be won. The climax came when Clara finally published the explosive article. It laid bare the uncle's crimes, the fraudulent land seizures, and most importantly, the evidence suggesting Adrian's parents had been murdered to silence them. The story spread quickly, shaking the community and drawing the attention of law enforcement. For the first time in years, Adrian felt the weight on his chest begin to lift. But the danger wasn't over. The uncle, desperate and enraged, confronted Adrian and Evelyn one night. The encounter was violent, rage against desperation, past against present. In those terrifying moments, Adrian found himself fighting not only for his life, but for his parents' memory, for Evelyn's safety, and for the chance to finally live free of shadows. The struggle ended with the uncle's arrest, the evidence too overwhelming for him to escape. As the dust settled, Adrian stood outside the courthouse with Evelyn by his side. He felt exhausted, battered, but also strangely light, as if the ghosts that had haunted him were finally at peace. Evelyn, too, was free from her uncle's grip, her eyes no longer clouded with fear. In the weeks that followed, the two grew closer, their shared pain blossoming into something gentle and healing. Adrian began to smile again, a real smile that reached his eyes. He returned to the library, but now the books felt less like an escape and more like companions in a world he was ready to embrace. Evelyn, once timid and silenced, found her voice, helping others who had suffered in silence like she once had. Together, they built something new, not just a relationship, but a life filled with hope, resilience, and love. The story of Adrian and Evelyn became one whispered in the town for years. People spoke of the quiet man who uncovered the truth, the woman who found her freedom, and how together they brought light to a place long clouded in shadows. It was a story of loss and fear, yes, but also of courage, healing, and the triumph of hope. And as Adrian stood one golden morning, watching the sunrise from the porch of the old house that no longer felt haunted, he knew the truth at last. The past could wound, but it could not define him forever. He had faced the darkness, and in doing so, he had found not only justice but also love. The ending, though born of pain, was finally happy. If Adrian's journey moved you, if his fight for truth and Evelyn's courage to break free touched your heart, then don't let the story end here. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories filled with drama, suspense, and hope. Hit the like button if you believe that light can always overcome darkness, and share this story with someone who needs a reminder that no matter how deep the shadows, a happy ending is always possible. Your support keeps these stories alive, and together, we can keep uncovering the tales that inspire, heal, and ignite the soul.